Hare. So this is part 1, 2, this is part 3 of a workshop on the connection between self-care and chanting the holy name. We established that to improve something, the most fundamental aspect of improving something is to improve or to rid ourselves of apathy. And apathy simply means I don't care. And when we don't care, then we suffer. And we bring suffering onto ourselves. And so when I say, I don't care, what am I really saying? I'm saying, I don't have self-love. If I suffer, I don't care. Of course we care when we suffer. But in that moment of the mode of ignorance, and we don't. We say, I don't care. Sometimes we'll say, whatever. Prabhu, your rounds aren't good. Whatever. It's another way of saying, I don't care. Prabhu, you should do this. It'll be good for you. Whatever. I don't care. Okay, so now we talked about how Prabhupada cares, so we should care. But if Prabhupada cares and we don't care, then who's going to care if we don't? Or in other words, what is the value of someone else's care if you don't take that care and care for yourself? Here, this is very healthy, eat it. I don't want to. No, I care about you, I want you to eat it. Thank you, but I don't want it. Isn't that interesting? Like, your guru can't really care for you unless you care for yourself. And I think a lot of us think, well, I don't have to do anything, he cares, and it's all mercy, and it'll all happen. But mercy has to be received and digested. And so we made the point yesterday, and I want to make it again, that if ever we say, I don't care about this, or don't care about that, we need to ask ourselves, is that really true that you don't care about this? Or that? Or is it that you don't care about yourself, and that's why you don't care about this or that? And I would say, most of the time, that's going to be true. I don't care enough about myself to care enough about this. And every time that little voice says, I don't care, that's a huge red flag, signaling there's a lack of self-love. And a lack of self-love is going to cause you so many problems, because you will neglect to do things which are good for you because you don't care, or you don't think you're worth it, which could be one of the reasons you don't care. Well, it doesn't matter, the world will go on. Nobody cares anyway. Or, I'm not worth caring about myself. That's, I don't care and I'm not worth it can go on, can be similar ideas. So how do you improve something by trying to improve it if you fundamentally don't care to improve? So on one hand, you're trying to improve, but on a deeper level, you don't care. How will you do it, right? Don't you think, well, let's imagine, if you just cared a little more, don't you think some of those things that are difficult to do would just be easier? Some of those things you just need a little more energy to do it. There's some resistance or some apathy. And if you didn't have that apathy, it would be just a little bit easier to just push through it. So think of something right now that you're having difficulty pushing through, that if you had more self-love, you would be able to push through it more easily, or completely easily. If I just cared a little bit more about myself, then I would be able to do blank. What is that? That you're having trouble doing. That you could do better if you had a little more self-care. Think about it for a moment. Someone have an idea? Well, as we discussed already, I'd push through the 6 o'clock japa blues. If I just get me through that. If I cared a little more, then when my japa, with the frequency, the energy is starting to diminish, then I would think, no, this japa is too important, and I care too much about my spiritual life, so I cannot allow myself to minimize the quality of my japa. So I push myself a little bit. Because I care. Somebody can think of something? Yes?
Waking up early, going to Mumbai.
Yeah. Waking up early? Well, you know how to get up early? Just change your definition of early. So 4:30 is not early anymore. 2:30 is early, but 4:30 isn't. So then I don't have to get up early, I only have to get up at 4. So solve that problem right away, right? You're going to sleep so many hours, so if you go to bed earlier, you get up earlier. It's like pretty simple, right? What else? Someone else have something? Yes?
There's a couple of projects that I've been asked to start, but other temple service gets in the way. And the thought comes up, if I just gave myself a little bit of self-love, and I would just make the priority the other way around. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now you can try it. Put it to the test. Wouldn't it be amazing if everything you knew you should do, you did? That would be a good way to live. In one sense you could say that would be the only way to live, because any other way is like self-defeating. I believe if your self-love hits a certain threshold, that's how you'll live. You'll have so much self-love, you would never compromise your values and do something less than what you believe and what should be done. Of course, sometimes we're overwhelmed, we have too much to do, we have to eliminate. But in terms of what you can do and you want to do, more self-love will help you. It makes it easier. And what I mean by self-love is just that I care enough about myself to do what is healthy and what is proper, instead of saying whatever. Be good if you get up in the morning, go to Mangalarti. Yeah, I know, well, whatever. Or maybe worse than whatever is the excuse why you can't do it. Yeah, Prabhu, I did that for years. I like this, but one of the best excuses is I'm not a morning person. I have a little skit, a joke, someone wants to join ISKCON, I go, I have a couple of questions for you. You like potatoes? You like sugar? You like the early morning? You like cold bathrooms? Because if you don't, you're joining the wrong movement. You like loud music? If we gave that, at the time someone wanted to join, if we asked them those questions, we wouldn't have many devotees here, right? Let's look at this phenomenon. We'll use rising early as an example, but we could use anything. So, I can't rise early, and I tell myself I'm not a morning person, right? So, not a morning person is an identity. I'm a late. What did we say? I'm a midnight. I'm a night person, not a morning. That's an identity. Maybe it's biologically true, but if you want to break that, you don't want to reinforce an identity that goes against what you want to do, right? But it works because it gives us a reason not to get up early, because after all, I'm not an early morning person, so I can't be expected to get up early, right? And that could make sense in some sense, maybe biologically it's true. But if you want to get up early, then you wouldn't want to think you're not an early morning person, because that would defeat you, because you're creating an identity against what you want to do. Does that make sense? So I have more self-love, which means I want to help myself rise early, so that I'll start to think in terms of ways that would enable me to do that. Like 4 o'clock is actually not early. It's like, that's like in village in Mayapur, everybody's up like 4:35 anyway. So, or however you want to think, right? So with self-love, you just start thinking, okay, how am I going to do it? What am I going to do? And with whatever, I'm not an early morning person, and it just doesn't matter anyway, who cares? But internally, you suffer because you know you should, right? So it's like, okay, you can lay comfortably in bed and just feel guilty. So either you're going to get your body out of bed and suffer, or you're going to keep your body warm and comfortable and emotionally suffer, isn't it? But you see, when you're self-caring, you start thinking like this, like I'm causing myself suffering by not doing this, and I don't want to cause myself suffering. And when you just stop, when you start to consciously prevent yourself from causing yourself suffering, so much will change in your life. I know it sounds simple, but I didn't realize how powerful self-care was until I taught it, and it became more and more obvious to me. And something that simple could be that life-changing. So, if I ask you a question now, if you cared a little more about yourself, what would you do differently? What would you do differently?
I'd be more present in my relationship with my family.
Be more present in my life. Look at that. Right off the top of his head. That I think that indicates we all know what we would do. Someone else? Something off the top of your head? Yeah.
I would take more care of my sadhana.
Oh, take more care of my sadhana. If we're not healthy, I think we would say I would take better care of my health. Right? What else? Someone have? What would you do? One thing differently?
Exercise more.
Exercise more. Yeah. There's some stairs out there. You can walk up 100 times. That's what I do. I try to find stairs to walk up. But I need a few flights. Yes?
Read more and set my boundaries with other people.
Read more and set my boundaries with other people. Reading more means I'm giving myself more nectar. I'm giving myself more spiritual nourishment. And setting boundaries means I'm protecting myself from being exploited, abused, or I'm protecting myself, not necessarily from people who are exploiting or abusing me, but I'm protecting myself from extending myself beyond what is healthy. And I'm being straightforward with people about what is acceptable and what is not. That's obviously a self-caring. Boundaries are so obviously activities of self-care, aren't they? It's like, no, I don't cross this line because it's not healthy. You don't cross this line because it's not healthy for me. And so, I think all of us, if we're a little more self-caring, our boundaries would change a little bit. Because we would protect ourselves from burning out, or being taken advantage of, or doing something that's not healthy. Yes?
But I have a comment about what you said.
Yes.
Sometimes it's difficult to know in advance if something
Is a boundary or not? Or someone crosses your boundary?
or should you accept something or not? Sometimes things go out of hand in the process.
Yeah. Let me elevate myself.
I thought that some tasks will be
You
very,
have to look
very simple.
at the camera. You have to raise the camera, or it's okay?
That's okay.
You can just pick it up from that stick and just pull it up.
You want to try this?
Oh, this is doing good. What I would say is that if you increase your self-care and then you increase your awareness to create boundaries, then if you didn't know a boundary was being crossed, as soon as you knew, you would do something. You would catch it in real time while it's happening and go, oh, I've got to stop. Or express it to somebody, this went too far, it's not good for me. I can't do this. It's not healthy. You would just be more aware of it. You know, of course, sometimes we don't have boundaries because we think, well, we should be unlimitedly tolerant and unlimitedly surrendered, and that's great if you can be. But if being unlimitedly tolerant and unlimitedly surrendered means you're going to burn out, and your Krishna consciousness is suffering, then technically speaking, that's not really the surrender. It's not really surrender, right? So, Prabhupada said, enthusiasm with intelligence. Yeah, you know what enthusiasm without intelligence is all about, right? So we should be enthusiastic, surrendered, but we have to know our limitations so we can protect our creeper. Yes. I think we're good for now. Is that okay? Does it make sense?
I guess you gain this with experience also. I mean,
Yeah, sometimes you learn by
yeah, you have to
suffering. You made a mistake. But I think, from what I understand about self-care, that if you increase your self-care, you'll just kind of know. It's a different way of looking at the situation. And it will help you know what your limitations are. Like some of us have a hard time saying no. But sometimes we need to say no. So we need to put up that boundary. And a lot of times we don't put up the boundary until we burn out. So that's one way of doing it, but at least you did it. But I think if you increase your self-care, you would probably prevent yourself from burning out. Or get better at it. Yeah. Yes?
Just on that, after I did the self-care workshop.
Could you pass the microphone, please?
I'll put it on When I did the self-care workshop that you gave, I think a few months ago, the question that came up for me before I entered into what I would previously have said maybe enthusiastically running to help a situation was this question, is it healthy for me to go into the situation? And this was sort of the level of self-care for me, is it healthy?
Mm-hmm.
And often the answer was no. Then it was a different option of what I do. Then another series of questions came up. But it was very interesting how it developed from just this, okay, I have to not see myself as non-existent in this.
Right, and but it always, I mean, you know what it is? It's like we want to be better than we can be. And it's frustrating. So part of self-care is self-acceptance, is just accepting that this is who I am. And maybe I wish I wasn't, but it is who I am. And that can be very difficult. You know, it's like if you have a big pimple on your face and you look like a monster. It's like, well, you know, that's just how it is today, you know. You can put makeup on and whatever, but, you know. So sometimes we don't like acknowledging that. It's really hard for the false ego. But it's a huge mistake to not acknowledge our limitation, because that's how we burn out, by trying to lift more weight than we can. Why are you trying to lift so much weight? No, let me try. He's lifting. Yeah, but that's him. He's a man. He can lift more, generally. No, I want to lift like him. Why? You can't. And then I convince you, well, actually, you can't lift that much and you're okay with it. Then everything's good. We have a very difficult task. We want to be pure devotees before we're pure devotees. And it's really frustrating not to be a pure devotee, because in every page of our books it says you should be a pure devotee. It's like, okay, I guess I should be a pure devotee. Let's go for it. Ta-da! And I run off the mountain and cry, and fall down the cliff, you know. A little too enthusiastic. So we have different challenges. I may not have the same challenges you have. You may not have the same challenges I have, but we all have challenges. And you know that story where one devotee told Prabhupada, I have no sex desire. You know that story? Raise your hand if you know that story. Wow. Almost everybody. So Prabhupada said, go see a doctor. So that was another way of saying it's absolutely normal to have sex desire. And maybe Prabhupada meant he should see a mental health professional as well. We could add that. But if we don't acknowledge the reality of what it means to be a conditioned soul and miscalculate and think like I'm not really a conditioned soul because I'm a devotee, then we'll get frustrated when we finally realize we are conditioned souls, as opposed to acknowledging in the first place that I am. And that is there's nothing wrong with it per se, because it's just a reality. What can you do? It's like, you've heard 6,000 rock and roll songs by the time you were 11. It's like, that does have an effect on you, right? Doesn't it? I have to sing one song first, then you can go. I came across this song by a famous blues guitarist, a black American. He's like the Adi blues guitarist. His name is B.B. King. And he also sings. And so he sang a song, and it goes like this. The thrill is gone. The thrill is gone, baby. The thrill is gone. And something like, I'm on my way, or, I'm kicking you out of the house or something, I'm going, the thrill is gone. And I was thinking of that song, and that's like from the 50s or 60s, and I'm thinking, okay, we grow up hearing songs like that. What are those songs telling us? Love is all about chemistry, and when the chemistry is gone, you just chuck that one out the window and find a new one, right? It's like, as a 16-year-old, I'm not consciously thinking of it, but it's so part of the culture, you don't even think there's something wrong with that song. And I just came up on my feed a couple of months ago, and I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. And this is like, everyone's like, yeah, and everyone's grooving. Basically you're saying, I'm kicking you out because, you're fat and ugly now. More or less. It's like, so that's what's in there. That's what got in there growing up. It's just a reality. And we want to be pure devotees, but it's, don't deny the reality. It doesn't help you. Yes, now you can ask your question.
Hi Krishna, it was interesting you mentioned that this point of you can't do the heavy lifting because he's a man, you're not. Because I think also people, not everyone is the same, not just based on gender, but we all have our psychological triggers and our history that we come with.
Yes.
And maybe I don't have boundaries, but somebody who does have boundaries it's their trigger as well. They need to maybe put down these boundaries because they are not able to say, yes, I can help, yes, I can do this, because they have their own problems. I'm just wondering how in Krishna consciousness do we deal with these psychological triggers?
In other people or in ourselves?
In ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
How is the best way to go about it? Because everything can be purifying, triggering.
It depends on the trigger. But the very fact that I'm triggered means there's something in there that if it weren't in there, wouldn't have gotten triggered, right? So the first thing is awareness that there's something in there, and it's not the fault of the person who pushed the trigger. Because If I didn't have the trigger, there's nothing for them to push. And if nobody pushes it, then I don't know I have the trigger. So if someone pushes it, then it's like, oh, this really bothered me. I wonder why. What's going on? Why did I get so angry at them? Why did I blame them? So now it's time for reflection. The most common mistake that we can make, or most disastrous mistake, is when we get triggered, is to blame the person who pushed the button. Because it's denying the cause of the problem, and the cause is my own something, whatever got disturbed, that's my own issue. And so if we can do that, then we can start reflecting, okay, well, why is it there? What's going on here? Maybe I can understand it on my own. Maybe I have to talk to another devotee. Maybe I have to talk to a counselor or therapist. It depends what it is. And it's something that I have to work through. Somehow or other. I need to work through it. Yes?
It's just most devotees are against going to see a psychologist or a psychotherapist or something, because chanting is supposed to purify us. And,
yeah. Supposed to.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that point.
People ask me, is chanting enough if you have a psychological problem? It's to get that question all the time. This is basically what you're asking, right? Yeah. And the best answer I can give is, well, you're chanting. Do you have the psychological problem? Because if the answer is yes, and especially you've been chanting a long time, then you've answered your question. That you need more help. Do we have devotees in the Hare Krishna movement who have addictions? We do. Are those devotees chanting? They are. Are they chanting 16 rounds? Some of them are. Some of them have been chanting 16 rounds their whole life, and they have an addiction. I thought chanting was supposed to prevent addiction. At least it should cure it. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe you need more help. If you need more help, what's the problem? The goal is to get rid of it. If you can't get rid of it through chanting, try to chant better. If you chant better and it's still a deep addiction, get help. It's not a problem, because the goal is to get free from it. So there was a devotee who periodically, this was like 30 years ago or 25 years ago, he'd come up to me and he'd go, I just got drunk last night. And then like the next month he'd go, I smoked. And a few months later, I got drunk again. A few months later, I was smoking. And he said, I said, they have programs that can help you become free from alcohol and cigarettes. Why don't you do it? And he said, no, I was chant Hare Krishna. I have faith in Krishna. He went on for about 20 years with those addictions. Then he finally got rid of it, I think, through the process of Krishna consciousness. But I think it would have been better he just got rid of it right away rather than 20 years of doing it, don't you think? So I think the point is when people say, well, the holy name should just do it, they feel like, well, it would be a compromise of my faith if I did anything else. But I don't think it's intelligent to carry an anartha with you. Some people join the Hare Krishna movement with anger issues, and they chant for 10 years and they still have them because it's so deep. They need help. Okay, so get help. It's not a problem. You don't want to be overcome by anger. That's contaminating. If you can't do it through the process, maybe you're just chanting isn't pure enough, however you want to see it, but you want to do something to prevent it. Cure it, heal it, somehow or other. Now, what I would say also is, to that person who says, well, I think it's a cop-out, and I would say, don't you think controlling your anger or overcoming an addiction can be seen as part of the process of bhakti, no matter how you do it. Because Krishna says, give up anger. Like Krishna obviously says, don't be addicted. So I tried getting, I lived in the temple still. The addiction was there. I did everything I could. Okay, so wouldn't surrender mean to do something to overcome it? And not think, well, it has nothing to do with bhakti? No, that is bhakti. You're healing a problem. You've got an anger problem. And somehow or other you can't control it. Get help. It's okay. We do a course on forgiveness. You're devotees. You shouldn't have forgiveness issues, resentment issues. You're all devotees. You know how many devotees have issues with resentment? You know how popular my forgiveness courses are? Like for devotees? Like why should a devotee have any resentment? It's just like devotees are compassionate. They understand all suffering is just a karmic reaction to what they did. They're compassionate, understanding, sympathetic. But in spite of all that, they have resentment issues. I just can't forgive that person. So I go, okay, come to my workshop and we'll go through processes. So I make you tell the story, tell your story, what happened. Then I make you tell the story from their perspective. A different vision. Then I make you tell the story from Krishna's perspective. It's like, I never thought of that. So we're like looking at it and looking at compassion and so forth. And then gradually you let it go. So it was just kind of like pushing it out there. Maybe you couldn't just do it by reading Prabhupada's books. You needed someone to help you, just like, here, let me help you pull it out. So why not? You pull it out and then your Krishna consciousness is much clearer now. It's better. You're free of that. Wouldn't that be, can't you consider that part of bhakti? Because you got rid of something that you couldn't get rid of it without a little help. That's how I see it. It's I've seen so many devotees coming to Krishna consciousness with baggage that's not healed outside before they came. So now it's creating a problem. They brought a skunk in their suitcase and the whole ashram smells. And it's like, okay. You should have left the skunk before you came, right? So we got to get rid of the odor. So in a healthier society, maybe the answer would be you don't need all this in a healthier society where these things are like very minimal and they just go away with bhakti. But in many cases it doesn't, because the problem is huge. Do we have devotees that are suicidal? Sometimes we do. Don't you think that's a contradiction? Like suicide is like the lower rungs of tamaguna. It's like in Krishna consciousness is transcendental. How did a devotee end up in tamaguna? Because, last night they were at the temple chanting and dancing, and the next day you read in the paper, Facebook, they killed themselves. And they didn't get help. That's pretty dangerous, right? If you've been physically abused, sexually abused, it's very damaging. So another thought, this is just my thought, another thought is, I've never read anywhere in the Shastra that the holy name is a solution for psychological problems. Like, people say just the holy name and say, okay, but show me the verse that, the holy name will give you love of Krishna, it'll do so many things. So show me the verse where it solves trauma. You've just been sexually abused, when you were 5, and chant and it'll solve that. Well, we have people who've been sexually abused and they're chanting and they have to work through that trauma in other ways. It's in the body, it's like stuck in there. There was a story of a man was talking to a girl and he went like this to just put his hair out of his face, and the girl jumped back. She was frightened. And what was discovered was that girl was physically abused. So just a man going like that because she's so used to being hit. It's in the body. Sometimes they say the brain is in the body. It's like it's in there. The body's reacting. So, these things are real. And if chanting the holy name doesn't solve it, but you have issues which are preventing or blocking you, then out of self-care and love, you want to heal those. And do whatever you have to do to heal them. And many devotees have done it and found it to be beneficial. I mean, look at this. Do we need courses in marriage? Do we? My wife and I just gave a course on how to choose a partner, or how to not to choose the wrong partner, and how to choose the right partner, because in the present age, people are expert at choosing the wrong partner. There's like about 80% divorce or something. So people have gotten really good in choosing the wrong partner, right? So, you're chanting Hare Krishna, everything's great, you're a staunch brahmachari. Then Bhaktin Sue walks in. And you're like, ah. And at that point, we don't just say, chant more rounds. We say, sit down, I got to talk to you. I got to tell you a few things about life, right? Say, well, why? Why not just chant Hare Krishna and I'll learn it all? Why do we need courses on marriage? We should just chant more rounds. It should just solve itself. But we know that's not true. We know. Like, my wife and I did a course on marriage a few months ago. So many devotees told me that helped their marriage so much. It's like, well, why didn't you know all this stuff? You're chanting Hare Krishna. So I was just in Poland. Devotees said, we were about to get divorced. That workshop saved us. We didn't know these things. So I haven't read any verse that chanting Hare Krishna makes you a better husband, a better wife, saves a marriage, prevents divorce. It's not. Mahaprabhu didn't come like a social movement, Here's a mantra to cure trauma and emotional issues to help you become a better husband. And I've never seen that verse. So I think the problems we have in Grihastha life and the needs we have for teaching how to have healthy Grihastha relationships are evidence of a reality that there are problems we face that the process of bhakti will not solve and is not aimed to solve. Now you could say, but if I'm just a good devotee and she's just a good devotee, wouldn't we have a good relationship? On paper, yes. Because if you're a good devotee, you're kind, compassionate, humble, right? So yeah, you should have a great relationship. But it doesn't work that way, necessarily. I know some really great devotees who are so different from one another that they don't have a great relationship. And they're really good devotees. As if their natures are different. If we just keep Krishna in the center, we'll have a good marriage. We've seen a lot of bad marriages with Krishna in the center because the individuals didn't know how to behave properly. They had to learn. Once they learned, things got better. This is what my observation. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. My observation is most people who say those things have never studied this. Have never deeply studied the nature of consciousness, psychology, and how it works. And they're very afraid of secular psychology. It's all atheistic and so on. So that's maybe a different issue, You go to the therapist and he says, have more sex. So, yeah, of course. But there's plenty of devotee therapists. And even Prabhupada gave therapy in some of his letters. Did you know that? Yeah. Guidance of how to, just like look at you dog. Look at how look at you acting like a dog. You have to understand this and this and this. Just trying to help them be healthy. And then you could say, if we came from more healthy backgrounds, then you could say, yeah, just chant Hare Krishna, because we wouldn't have all these problems in the first place. So we wouldn't have to worry about it. But if you bring all this baggage in to the ashram, what are we going to do with it? We have to purify it, because it's going to be an impediment to your devotional service at some point. We have these brahmacharis, right? So the brahmachari means celibate, and even grihastha. If you're practicing grihastha life properly, it means being celibate. So to be celibate, you have to have a certain healthy. Like, what if you have unhealthy attitudes towards the opposite sex? You have a lot of repulsion, aggression, issues from the past. It's going to be hard to be celibate. Yes?
What if the authorities we have are not focused on our self-care?
You have to be your own advocate. Your own advocate, like a lawyer. You have to be a lawyer for yourself. Say, this is what I need. Or you can discuss your needs with them. Say, this is what I think I need for these reasons. If you try to be a brahmachari, and your mechanism to remain brahmachari is to hate women, you're in big trouble. It's a problem. It's unhealthy, right? And so brahmacharis should know that. They should learn that. And maybe you became a brahmachari because you had lots of bad relationships with women. You're like, I hate women, I'll never get married. Until Bhaktin Sue walks in the temple from Sweden with blonde hair and blue eyes, and it's like, Bhaktin Sue, you want to get married? I just moved in the temple yesterday. So we've seen things like that happen. If I were an attractive woman, I would make myself ugly, because we have seen a lot of men put on white when Bhaktin Sue joined the temple. This is real, true history. So, I have bad experiences, so I think I'm a brahmachari and I hate all women until one woman shows up that I don't hate. So, these are unhealthy forms of psychology. We have to understand them and deal with it, don't we? Otherwise, we'll have trouble. My dear brahmacharis, you have one relationship with women, and only one. You want to know what it is? Yeah, mother's there, how can I serve you? That's it. Nothing else. Only. It's either, how can I serve you? All right, I'm good, I don't need anything. Okay, so you have no relationship. It's either can serve you or nothing. That's it. That's brahmachari. Oh yeah, we're supposed to talk about japa, right? Maybe we could, unless someone has another comment or question? Yes?
I have a question. Maharaj. I wrote down, you said digesting mercy, and I want to know how.
How to digest it?
Yeah.
You got to grab it first. Everything in the life of a devotee, or at least in the temple life of a devotee, everything is mercy, right? The holy name is full of mercy, but we may not get it, right? To be able to digest the mercy, it requires at least from my experience, it requires going beneath the surface to understand what that mercy is and how to access it. Right? This is like, do you ever want to get the mercy of Tulsi and you're chanting the Tulsi prayers and you're trying to like meditate, and it's like, this is very deep. And I need to be in a consciousness where I can access the depth of this prayer and then get the mercy of Tulsi through this prayer. So I think in one sense, it's a like a permanent exercise of going deeper and understanding that there's always another depth I'm not accessing. And as I access it, there's more mercy. As I go deeper, there's more mercy in it. Like, when you go on parikrama in Vrindavan or Mayapur, and they go, this is where Krishna did this. And you're like, okay. You're expecting thunderbolts and, You ever had that experience? And and you're like, okay, so when's the mystical experience? When am I going to... No, just embrace the tree. Okay, I did. When do I feel it? So at that time you realize that my consciousness is not deep enough, or pure enough, or however you want to describe it, to access that. And if it were, I would be feeling something much deeper right now, right? And you know that you're in this holy place, and you know that's like there's so much Shakti here, and it's like, Krishna, how do I feel it? How do I access it? I think that should be the constant, like meditation and effort. Because there's enough mercy in everything we do, right? So we'd have no problem at all, just be completely Krishna conscious, but it requires a little effort to access it. And so when I'm chanting, I'm especially in that mood because I know there's so much in the holy name that I may not access if I don't chant properly. So I'm kind of like excavating through every mantra. It's like dig a little deeper, I know this mantra is deep, but I need to take it deeper. I think everything's like that. Mangalarti, looking at the deity, it's like, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you accessing? It may require some depth of understanding. Oh, Krishna's there in the deity. It's like, I'm not seeing it completely. Krishna, help me. Can I see you with more devotion? Maybe that's what I need. Can I chant with more devotion, less false ego, more humility? What do I need to do to access it? And so, when we're doing our rounds, if we're thinking like it's excavating, I need to excavate and explore. Maybe it's my false ego that's blocking it. Maybe I'm just not desiring to be Krishna conscious, and I'm not, I don't know how to access the name because I don't have a desire for it. What is it? And I'm trying to figure out how do I get more out of it. And so the general mood, I think, of this is that we are trying to extract mercy and nectar all the time as much as we can, and that's what it means to be a devotee. And we're always trying to figure out how to go more deeply. Maybe you read something, you read it over again and over again. Think about it. Wow, that's heavy. Think about it. Talk to a friend about it, and you're just like, I need to understand this. I know this is important, and I know there's much more here than I can see. And then you read another purport, and you're like, oh, I just got under this, and then you get excited, and you go, wow, this is amazing. If we can live like that, then Krishna consciousness will always be exciting. And juicy and tasteful. But if we don't live that way, then it's It's just the outside of the jar. And we see the honey inside, but we don't taste it. And we don't want to live that way. Because that's torture. If you just lick the jar and there's nothing in it, okay, well, there's nothing in it. But if the honey's in there, it's frustrating. So I think the best way to answer this question is apply it to your japa and your kirtan. And just like, I know the holy name is much deeper than I'm accessing at this moment. How can I access more? Sometimes I see japa like a fruit, and I just have to squeeze the juice out of it. It's like, but if I'm not squeezing right, I'm just getting pulp, not juice. So how do I squeeze it to get the juice? Trinadapi Sunichi, that's a good place to start. Focusing, hearing, praying. Setting proper intention, as we discussed earlier, all these things. The other thing is, I think it's essential to fully understand that I cannot succeed without mercy. And there's so much mercy in the holy name, but I could chant it without getting its mercy, which would be the greatest loss. And I need that mercy. So how important is it to chant well? Because there's all the mercy I need is in the holy name, but if I don't get that mercy, then it's like, well, good luck. How am I going to be Krishna conscious if I don't get that mercy? I'm not. Or not enough. So if we increase our understanding of how important mercy is, how essential it is for our spiritual life, how I can't exist without it, that can help our chanting. Because there's like, okay, you need mercy. You've realized you need mercy. Well, it's all in the holy name. Now I can't just schnick, schnick, ram, ram, 16 rounds, right? And just like, if I need mercy, and that's what I'm doing, then I would say, you probably don't realize how much you need mercy, and you don't realize how powerful mercy is. Because if you did, you wouldn't schnick, schnick, ram, ram, blah, blah, your rounds. Sometimes you want to talk to a devotee or do something, and devotees say, I can't do it now, I have to finish my rounds. They're like, they know they need the mercy of their rounds, and they don't want to compromise their rounds, because then they compromise the mercy. So that alone can be extremely powerful. That alone could actually solve all our japa problems if we just, every morning when we sat down to chant, we realized, I absolutely need the mercy of the holy name. I can't exist without it, and I just can't mess it up. Because if I do, I'm destroying my chances to be Krishna conscious in this life, because I need that mercy. And so if you're in that mood, it's much easier to chant well. It kind of forces you to chant well. So, yeah. I think it's evident when you read. You just really want to understand what Prabhupada is saying, because there's so much mercy in what he's saying. Did you ever read something Prabhupada said, like you read it 20 years ago, and now you read it and you finally get it? And you like curse yourself. It's like, I wish I would have understood this 20 years ago. My life would have been a lot better and easier. I didn't understand it. So it's like that. I didn't squeeze it. I didn't squeeze the nectar out of it enough. Okay, what do you think? Should we squeeze some nectar? Yes. Yes.
Regarding the same topic, so Like, what are some methods or ways not only externally by reading affirmations, but not to become too familiar with the holy name?
Here's a realization I had last year, or 2 years ago in Vrindavan. It's kind of an interesting realization. I'll share it with you. Maybe it'll help you. I was on a japa walk, and I started thinking, if Krishna's in his name, then the Krishna that I'm creating is my Krishna. And the Krishna you're creating is your Krishna. Because you're making the sound Krishna, I'm making the sound Krishna. So you have your Krishna, I have my Krishna. He has his Krishna, she has her Krishna. I thought, oh, that's interesting. And the holy name is a deity made of sound, not wood, not metal, not stone, but sound, more subtle, but still material element. It's like, oh, so someone says, can I get deities and worship them? You go, you already have. The holy name, those are your deities. So I thought, okay, well I have Radha and Krishna in sound on my tongue. So I have my little deities, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I'm producing deities every time out of sound, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Those are my deities, right? It's a nice meditation, isn't it? So one time I was chanting kind of like this. I was really tired. Maybe it was late at night. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And I was thinking, my Krishna is really tired right now. Or sometimes I'm chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare. Oh, my Krishna is very enthusiastic right now. So, one of the beautiful meditations is, okay, I'm creating my Krishna, he's there in the deity, and now I can talk to him. He's present, and he's hearing everything. Like when you really meditate, and you really get in that consciousness that Krishna is there in his name, it's very natural to just want to talk. Reveal your heart, pray to the holy name, because he's, like if Krishna came, said, ask me something. It's like, well, he's right there. So you can try to meditate on Krishna in his name. That's your Krishna. He's right there. And you can say anything you want. So let's imagine this. Krishna comes to your house and he says, I'll just sit down and you can tell me anything you want. Right? So you start talking to him. And after 10 minutes he says, well, I think I want to leave now. Would you want him to leave? Can you tell him everything, in 10 minutes? And you want to make sure he knows what you want. And you want to make sure he's going to give it. So it's going to take more than 10 minutes, right? And you have a long list of things you need help with. So it's definitely going to take more than 10 minutes. So if you are chanting in that mood where you just bring your consciousness to the fact that Krishna is present in the name and I can talk to him, and you start opening your heart and asking for help, you don't want to stop, because you can never stop asking for help, and you don't want to stop asking. So that's why when 6 o'clock comes, it's like no problem, because you're just like, I got a lot to ask. I got a lot to tell you, Krishna, Hare Krishna. There's it's like 2 hours is hardly enough to tell you everything. And not only tell you, but I can ask you. Like I'm going to go out and book distribution, or I'm going to do this service. I need to ask you for empowerment. So I want to make sure I'm going to get it. So anything you need, you can talk to Krishna about. And it's very special. And so, if that's how you relate to japa, then don't you think you kind of look forward to it every day? It's Like I get to talk to Krishna today and tell him, what I need. Instead of like, oh no, japa. And you're like, I can't wait, I get to talk to Krishna. That's something you can try. You can try it tomorrow, see how it works. Yes?
How does it work hearing? How does it work hearing the holy name? And it said we should even hear every syllable, whether that works or not is another thing, but still try to hear the name and then at the same time think or speak to Krishna.
Yeah, don't think, feel. Can you hear and feel at the same time? Yeah, like you hear a story and then you feel all the emotions. So hearing and feeling are not contradictory. I can tell you how I process it, which is basically the way I just explained it. When I'm hearing, then that's the Krishna. I'm hearing the Krishna that I'm making, and that Krishna is present. Because my consciousness is on that Krishna, and that Krishna is there, so now I can talk to him. I've made Krishna by saying Hare Krishna. I'm present to Krishna because I'm hearing. And now I open my heart to ask Krishna for whatever it is I need to ask. So they're not two different things. I think a lot of times devotees think it's like they're contradictory. They're not. You see a beautiful woman, you like the way she looks, and you say, and she also has a nice voice. So when you hear her voice, you don't stop seeing her. When you see her, you don't stop hearing her. It's not a problem to engage different senses. Maybe because we were focused on just hearing, then we think it's like, oh, I don't know how to do it. But it's pretty normal to be engaged in a few different ways at the same time. So you're bringing Krishna in. You're focusing, you're hearing, you're feeling, and you're asking for help. Maybe it takes a little practice, but you can do it. Yes?
Yeah, so maybe could you give some advice on how to feel the feeling? Because there seems to be some covering.
Yeah, it's called being a man. That's part of the handicap. I don't know if it's called being German. I can't say, but there could be some of that in there also. I don't know. Right? Well, let's try to make it simple. The Maha Mantra is a prayer. It's not a mantra like Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Because Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is not a petition, it's glorification. Oh Krishna, oh Supreme Personality of Godhead, I offer my obeisances to you. It's not asking for anything, it's offering. So it's a kind of prayer, but not a prayer where one is begging for something. So the Hare Krishna mantra essentially is a prayer in which the devotee is begging for something. So one thing you can do before you chant is think, well, if Krishna were here and I could ask him for anything, what would I ask him for today? And it should be something that you really need. And by that I mean something you feel you really need. Like if I feel challenged with this particular problem, and I can feel the pain of that challenge, and I could feel the relief and satisfaction and bliss if I could overcome that problem. So if you feel it on that level, you're already feeling. And so, because it's a personal problem, then it's natural to feel it. Right? Because you're already feeling it, isn't it? Whatever it is. Krishna, help me overcome my jealousy. It's burning my heart all the time. I'm so jealous. I'm burning my heart. So you're already feeling the pain of the jealousy. And you think, well, how would I feel if I didn't have it? And you could immediately relate to what a relief that would be. And so now you have created some intensity in your chanting because you're thinking Krishna can help you with this jealousy and I really need help with it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And so you're already feeling it because it's real for you. I think maybe the problem with some of us when we get caught up with feeling is maybe we're trying to feel something that's not real. You know, or maybe it's a desire like, well, this is what the pure devotee desires, but then I desire it and I just get distracted because I don't feel it. So you bring in something that you can feel, which is real for you. But even the prayer, Krishna, please engage me in your service, is real, because the other half of that prayer is, Krishna, please protect me from Maya. So when we say, engage me in service, we're saying, please keep me under the protection of your internal potency. And protect me from the influence of your external potency. Do we want to be protected from the external potency? Yeah, we all do, all the time. That's something we can relate to. So even that prayer, please engage me in your service, it's very easy to feel that. Because I'm always battling with Maya, the external energy, and I need help and I need protection. But whatever it is you're praying for, try to be able to relate to it practically as a way you always feel, because then there's no adjustment, because you always feel that way. Yes?
You touched the point in the morning. It's two questions, but related.
Okay.
Because Prabhupada says in one quote, we should not think anything, just hear the holy name.
Yeah.
And the second point is, we always hear that follow the 4 regulative principles and chant 6 rounds, and you will go back to Godhead. So this lifetime, or is it next lifetime? It's some confusion. Everyone has a different opinion,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it can't be so easy without Shuddhanam that we just go back, you know.
Yeah. So how to make sense of it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's easy to understand because at initiation, Prabhupada explained the 10 offenses and wanted the 10 offenses explained at every initiation. And that should make it clear that when we vow to chant 16 rounds, we're not vowing just to chant. We're vowing to chant without offense. So when Prabhupada says, chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 principles, you'll go back to Godhead. If you chant 16 rounds a day without offense, you're going to be Krishna conscious. You're going to be very Krishna conscious. And recently I heard Prabhupada said, he said, if you chant your whole life, definitely you'll be Krishna conscious. And he calculated, and everyone was in their 20s. He said, well, you'll all live at least 50 years. And he said, 50 is plenty of time to be Krishna conscious. But it's not enough time if you're making offenses. So when Prabhupada says, I promise you, yeah, you chant all your life avoiding offenses, it's going to work. And you'll become very Krishna conscious. And so hearing is kind of like spiritual bypassing. It's like we really don't want to do the process of chanting well, and we want to think that any way we chant is good enough because it's 16. But that defies normal logic, because just because you do 16 of anything doesn't mean you did it the right way, and it's going to have the same effect as if you do it the right way. So just being practical, that's pretty common sense, simple understanding. So whenever we say 16 rounds, we should always add without offense. Or making the effort to avoid offenses. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And so I'm going to say something that, it's not the nicest thing to say, but I think it's important to say it. Those 16 rounds, it's just not proper. It's not, those 16 rounds with offense are not enough to take you back to Godhead. So understanding that's just a philosophical point. You don't go back to Godhead with Nam Aparad. You have to come back until you start chanting Namavas, which will lead you to Shuddhanam. So if we understand that, it's not just chanting that's going to do it, but it's chanting properly. And why wouldn't it be? Because there's nothing that you can just do the wrong way and get the result. Right? How are you going to paint this painting? Oh, I don't know, any old way. How are you going to paint the car? Oh, let's do some spray paint. We'll just get a few cans and spray it up, It's obviously, there's a process. So, if we understand that, just understanding that can really help us. Because then when we sit down to chant, we're like, oh, okay, I can't just chant any old way and think it's good. I have to actually do it, avoiding the offenses. At least trying to concentrate, at least trying, And going back to what I told you, if we understand that this time of chanting is really important to chant well, because I really need this mercy I need the mercy of 16 good rounds. There's not a lot of mercy in 16 bad rounds. There's not enough mercy in 16 bad rounds for me to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. And if I understand that could be enough impetus just to motivate myself, if I actually care about my Krishna consciousness, to do it right. At least to do it better. I can't say we'll do it perfectly all the time, but I could definitely say we'll do it better. Because we've created an intention, parameters, what is bad, what is good. When we did the online japa course, we did it a few times, and we did a poll. And the poll was a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 is excellent japa, and 1 is really bad japa. And about 27% of the devotees were at 3 or under. About 50%, 50 to 60 were in the 4 to 5 to 6 range. Maybe more 4 to 5. And then a few were 7 or 8, like 15%. So 5 was average. 4 was less than average. 6 is a little above average. So the majority of devotees in ISKCON are at 5 or below. That's not good, is it? That means average or not good or really bad. That's pretty scary. That means somehow we're thinking, it could mean that somehow we're thinking, well, just chant 16 rounds, whatever. You just have to do that, and Prabhu will take you back to God. Yeah, not exactly.
It's like in Christianity.
Yeah, a little bit.
And we go back to
a little bit, yeah. I mean, what's the point of the 10 offenses if we don't have to follow them? Doesn't make sense, right? Yes?
Question?
Yes.
I was thinking earlier on when you were talking about self-care that I find it sometimes difficult to integrate it, in the sense that I understand it, the concept, and I see how important it is, and I also manage to take care of myself, but then I also experience myself falling back and realizing like, oh, I'm burning out again or something, I'm not feeling good, so it's kind of going back and forward. And my realization was that it's more a commitment to myself, to commit to myself, taking care of myself, and make it a daily practice, like kind of checking in how do I feel. But still facing difficulties. Maybe you can say something about that.
Well, I think that's beautiful. That is committing to yourself is self-care. That is, what you're describing is the development of a new habit. So there's the habit of not caring, and not caring enough, and I'm trying to develop the habit of caring, so it's easy to fall back into the habit of not caring. Because not caring is just a kind of laziness, and so it's always easy to be lazy, isn't it? It doesn't take any effort to be lazy, so. one of the things I think that can help is if we try to understand more deeply how important self-care is, how fundamentally important it is for us in achieving so many things in our life. And anything that becomes a priority is going to happen. So if you can make self-care more of a priority, of course committing is part of that. But I think it would even be better if you didn't have to commit, you could make it such a priority that you would just do it. Like it would just be what you do, you know? Like your state of being would be self-caring.
Yeah, I had the same thought, like when it's becoming such a part of me, taking care of myself.
Yeah.
I don't even have to think about taking care of myself. Because it's
Yeah.
so natural.
Like I was saying earlier today, that you'll see with advanced devotees, they're just like, there's no question they're not going to put their entire effort into chanting their rounds well. It's just, they can't do it any other way. They don't know how, because their need to be Krishna conscious and their need to give themselves the holy name has developed to a point where I think it would be impossible for them to chant bad rounds. They wouldn't know how to do it. That would be good, wouldn't it? Like to get to the point where you don't know how to chant bad rounds. I think it's possible. And you could apply that to all the aspects of your life that you need to care for. You could get to that point where it becomes alien to your own nature and consciousness to not take care of those things. Like it wouldn't happen, you know? And if you think about it in your life, you already have certain parameters for your life that you wouldn't step beyond, right? You're not going to do this. And every day you are going to do this and you'll never do that. So you already have some in place. So it's a matter of just adding awareness. But the thing that what we're trying to do with self-care is we're trying to neutralize as far as possible the I don't care consciousness and maximize as far as possible the I do care consciousness. And that is really the essence of self-care, like those two things. Increasing within yourself a greater amount of care for your needs in relation to Krishna consciousness, and minimizing any I don't care mentality. And every time that I don't care comes up, you should be like, "Whoa, not good. This is a problem. I have to eliminate this. This is going to kill me." Because all I don't care is I'll get drunk tonight and I'll worry about it tomorrow. That's all I don't care says, right? I'll do this today, I'll worry about it tomorrow, right? And when tomorrow comes, you think, "God, I was stupid, I shouldn't have done that." And then we can ask ourselves, why did I do that? What is going on with me that I didn't care? And what could I do, or how do I increase that consciousness of caring about myself? Because if I can just get my self-care to a certain level, it's going to be really easy to do a lot of things that I don't do now. And it's going to get to the point where I can't not do those things because I care too much about myself. Or I will do these things just because I care too much to avoid them. And then if we can condition ourselves that way, then everything becomes easier. Right? I love myself too much to allow myself to fill in the blanks. What's your problem? Think of a problem. I love myself too much to allow myself to, and fill in the problem. To do that. Get up late for Mangalarti, procrastinate whatever the problem is. Not take care of myself the way I should. I love myself too much to allow myself to procrastinate, to get up late, to not take care of my needs. And then you develop that mentality, then it becomes subconscious. It's just the way you live. And ladies, if you're not married, you have to have this, because otherwise you won't have protection. You won't have the protection that gives you the discrimination to choose who the right man is, or men also. But I would say even more so ladies. You know, sometimes people become attracted to one another and they know it's not going to be healthy, but they like one another too much and they stay together. But they know, this is not good for me, right? Now with more self-care, you never even wouldn't have allowed yourself to be attracted to a person who you know would not be healthy for you in the first place, right? What we call toxic relationship or whatever, right? So that's why self-care is important, because it protects you from stepping over a line that you may not be able to turn back from. Yes? Krishna, Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mahatma Prabhu. Thank you for sharing your realizations. You talked about that brahmachari must have a healthy attitude towards women. So maybe you have some advice how to develop this consciousness to see every woman as a mother.
Well, you don't have much choice. It's either mother or you know what else, isn't it? It's not a lot in the middle. Now, if it helps you to see them as sister, okay, you know, Prabhupada, he said mother is the proper way, but sometimes mother maybe doesn't work for you. They're younger than you or something. The word respect is important. Prabhupada uses this word, exploit the resources of material nature. Have you heard Prabhupada say that? We come to exploit the resources of material nature. So for a man, one of the resources is woman. For a woman, one of the resources is man. So we exploit material things, which is okay, because that's kind of what they're created for. Use your computer, use your blender, use your juicer, use your instrument. It's just like we exploit it fully, right? We use it. But that same consciousness, we tend to direct that towards people, and we use the people like they're machines. Because, you buy something, this thing you bought is for your pleasure to use as you like. Right? Got my new headphones and all the gizmos and gadgets that go with it, and I just use it for my enjoyment. If I use it in Krishna service, it's fine. But the problem is, when we apply that mentality to people, then we start seeing people as objects for my gratification, because that's what I'm used to doing. That's where the problem comes. So then we look at everything in terms of how much we can enjoy it, rather than how much we can serve it. Which is why I said your only relationship with woman is service. Because if you don't have that relationship, then you'll think, maybe not with all of them, but with some, well, how can I enjoy them? Now, we have a problem. And the problem is, we have made vows to avoid certain activities. But not all of us have made vows to avoid them in our minds. So, well, I'm not going to do this. Well, are you not going to do it in your mind? Are you not going to do it in your dreams? Well, that's a lot harder, right? So, it's like you're supposed to fast from water, and you go under water in the lake and you drink water because nobody sees it. That example Prabhupada gives is the way of cheating. So when you take a vow, if you can take that vow not just in action but in mind, to not think about it, then that's going to solve your problem. Because in order to do that, you have to develop the proper attitude towards the opposite sex to be able to do that, to just be pure. I don't break any of the regular principles except in my mind. It says right there in Kali Yuga, there's no karma for, committing a sin in your mind. Okay. But it doesn't say you won't get contaminated by it. It just says there's no sinful reaction, but you definitely get contaminated. So we want to take this vow of celibacy within ourselves, within our hearts, within our minds. We want to see the opposite sex as objects of service. If we don't see them as objects of service, then we see them as objects of enjoyment. What can I get? So our attitude in relation to the opposite sex, it's not like, after class you go up to every woman and say, how can I serve you? I didn't mean it like that. But it's a consciousness that my relationship with you is either nothing, neutral, or service. What can I do to help? Right? That's it. If you want a deeper meditation, one second. If you want a deeper meditation, then when you look at that woman, imagine you are that woman. And there's this guy looking at you. Then you'll know what it feels like to be a woman. I know what it feels like to be a woman because I distributed books in San Francisco in the gay district. And that was my first experience of what it's like to be a woman, because these guys were all over me when I was young and beautiful. I'm still beautiful, but I'm not young. Yeah, if you ever want to know what it's like to be a woman, go to the gay district. And you'll have that experience. And it actually was very purifying for me. Like, oh yeah, this is what, the men are looking at women like they own them. They're for their enjoyment. So, you have to respect the woman. Is that okay for now? Yes?
I just wanted to check, is it the same rule for women who choose to be a brahmacharini?
Yeah, more or less. But Prabhupada said you should see men like son, the men should see women like mother. And yeah, at least while you're a brahmacharini, that's the mentality you have. And later on, when you want to get married, then it's going to be different. But at least you're like a nun now, kind of, right? That's what it means. So, you're not trying to attract men. Make yourself beautiful. Dress simply like that. That's the idea. And then when you start dressing beautifully, then we'll know, oh, she wants to get married now. But before that, no. When a woman loses her husband and becomes a widow, she wears white. You know that? She wears white and no jewelry, no makeup, nothing. Because she left her husband, she's not trying to attract another man. So she just doesn't dress in a way that's attractive. So when you're brahmacharini, that's kind of the idea. They're just wearing the same saffron every day. Pretty simple, right? Jai Nishingadev. So that's the idea.
And if you wanted to stay a brahmachari, you could then wear white if you didn't want to get married.
Yeah, but I wouldn't advise it. Yet. Many women wore white when they were young, but they took it off later. How old are you?
I'm 37 next month.
Oh yeah, maybe. Anyway. Wear white with a border. Now wait till you're a little older, Wait till you've been a devotee. this is an interesting thing that happens. When you become a devotee, you're coming out of the material world, and the experiences you had in the material world were kind of pushing you to spiritual life. And so those experiences are very fresh, and those fresh experiences help in our renunciation. But after you've been a devotee a while, and you've distanced yourself from what your material life is, you gain a better understanding of where you're at. Because you're not like being affected by those past bad experiences. It's kind of neutralized. Does that make sense, or should I? Yeah. Like sometimes renunciation comes from frustration, but it's not real renunciation. It's just like, I'm frustrated with that. I don't want to do that again. And so a lot of people, when they come out of a bad relationship, they'll say, I'll never have a relationship with another woman or another man again, because it was so traumatic and difficult and draining. But 4 or 5, 6 years later, they won't necessarily feel that way, and they'll meet some guy, well, he seems nice, and we get along, and then the desire for that. Sometimes you can't tell if you have a desire or not if you've been frustrated by something, right? Because it kind of covers it. It makes it think you don't want it, and you say, "I don't want it." Maybe you do. If you had a healthier experience, maybe you would say, "I do want it." But the unhealthy experience, maybe you say, "I don't want it." So it's always, you always have to be careful in analyzing your level of renunciation, because it can be filtered through bad experience, and it's just like, it's a repulsion, not a renunciation. So that's why, wait and see. Then you'll know. It's very interesting. Like sometimes you can't tell, because you had like bad experiences with something. You're like, I don't want it. I don't want to touch it. Yes.
I feel a part of it is to do. It's not necessarily that I wouldn't want it, but my intelligence tells me, if I'm meant to live my life as if I'm going to die soon, my first thought isn't, I want to get married and have kids. I would rather serve a spiritual master than have a husband.
Yeah, maybe.
And either way, there's going to be suffering. So.
Yeah, I agree with that part. The question is, what's going to be less? That is a good way of thinking. But whether that way of thinking will remain in you in a few years, we have to see. Right? That's the tricky part. It's like sometimes it's hard to tell if this way of thinking is actually the way I am, or it's circumstantial because of just what I've come from and how I'm relishing so much Krishna consciousness, and it seems like this is what I want. Say, okay, that's fine. Just give it time and see if that, in 5 years you still want it.
Yeah, I'll be old, too old.
All right, 3 years, 2 years. Anyway, you can't force it. If you don't want it, you don't want it. But you should talk to some of the women about it. They may talk you out of it. My wife didn't want to have children, and one day she came back from India and said, we're having children. I said, really? She said, yeah, every senior woman I knew told me you should have children. Because she was like, it was 19, no, she wasn't that old. It was like 34, 35. And everyone said, you should have children. She wasn't even thinking about it. And all of a sudden, and now we only had one. We tried to have 2. She had a miscarriage, and she's like, oh, I was so stupid. I should have had more children. I should have done it earlier. So sometimes you can't tell. You're in a certain stage of life. And then you go through another stage, the stars change, you get older, and then you feel differently. So sometimes it's really hard to understand what you want unless you give it a little bit of time. Especially when you become a devotee, because it's just so different. We all, in the beginning, we want it so much. But then after a number of years, we know how much we can actually digest. We know how qualified we are. So maybe in a few years you might think, yeah, I could do this. I want to do this, or I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can be brahmacharini my whole life. It'll become more clear. But I would talk to the women about it. They'll help you. More than I can help you. They have the female insight. Yes? Isn't that interesting? That you sometimes you can't even understand your level of renunciation because it's more repulsion than renunciation, and you don't realize it until you realize it later. I was 20. How old was I? I was 24. I was married for like 2 years. I had a 1-year-old son, and I wanted to take sannyas. I was like completely fed up with it. I go, this is like, it's just a waste. Got to take care of a kid, you got to make money, satisfy the wife. This is like, let me get out on the road and preach. And I thought, I can do this. And why did I think I could do it? Because I was so fed up with grihastha life, I thought, why would I ever want to go back to that again? And my wife left, and I thought, oh, that's good, she left. And I got married again when I was older, So this is like really hard to understand where you're at when there's so much difficulty in your life pushing you a certain way, because it doesn't really let you know what's deep in your heart. You only know right now how you feel. It's interesting. It's just interesting to think about. Not just for you, for all of us. And then you're going to ask, well, how do I know if I don't know? Right? Is that what you're thinking? Well, you should have been thinking like, how do I know if I don't know? Yeah, well, you don't know. But at least you might know, you might be able to think, well, maybe it's not, what I'm feeling now is not really what's in my heart. It's just circumstantial. Okay.
Krishna,
yes.
At the beginning you asked us what would we have done differently?
Yes.
And left and right I had opinions this and that and so on and so forth. And it all made me remember chapter 5 and the first canto of Krishna Bhagavatam, where it's clearly stated that the reason why we're here is because we think we know, but actually we know nothing. And this exacerbated form of ego that we proudly say, no, I know this and that and that. That's why we're here, that's why we got kicked out. So, and bhakti is all about admitting to ourselves that we don't know and that we submit to a spiritual master. So he tells us what to do so we can go back.
So you're saying it would make you more humble?
What?
Are you saying it would help you become more humble?
To practice bhakti yoga.
If you had more self-care, you'd be more self-care or self-love?
It would make me more humble. I hope so. No, but what I would have done differently is...
Oh, what you've done differently, okay.
Like I said, I really don't know. For my dilemma in the morning was all about I put it this way. My previous temple commander, he told me that the way you practice your day to day is
prepares you for tomorrow.
Prepares you for tomorrow. Yeah. So I did it, but I did it too much. I need sadhusanga, I need to do devotions, I need to do my sevas, I need to chant my rounds. But I also need my sleep. Unless I'm a Thakur, then I don't. So I'm now reflecting on it, it's like, okay, I did too much of all the things, so that's why I didn't get enough sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment, it didn't feel like it. It was like, no, it's just how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then my body said no. And now
Well,
I
like-
apologize for it.
Yeah, well, like we were saying before, sometimes you have to burn out to know that you went too far. It's just a life experience. And sometimes you're burned out and you don't even know you're burned out. You ever had that experience? And then, one day you totally collapse. You take a nap at 3 in the afternoon and you wake up at 3 in the morning. You ever done that? No? I didn't know how tired I was. I didn't know how sleep deprived I was or whatever. It would be better if we knew, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If we were more sensitive to it.
But the point I'm getting to is like, I don't understand why you always ask us what we think we would have done differently. It's like, you should tell us. Like, that's how it's written.
Oh, no. I'm not a cult leader. I want you to understand. I'm giving you some parameters in which to think. But I will not think for you. I'll give you the parameters in which you will think. You will understand. So I ask you to think, if you cared for yourself more, what would you do differently? I would say you would have not burned yourself out, if you want an answer from me. That's one of the things you would have avoided. You would have been sensitive to. But just look at the question again and think more about it. Because if you don't think about it, how will you prevent yourself from... How can you prevent yourself from doing what's bad for you and get yourself to do what's good for you? Because no one else is going to be around you telling you all the time what to do. And it's not that Prabhupada wanted us to not think, but he wanted to give us guidelines in which we would think. So it's not like, well, he'll just tell us everything. No, but he'll give you guidelines in which to use your intelligence. Is that okay, or you'd rather make it easier for you?
So this is also the actual parameters of the relationship between spiritual master and his followers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, obviously sometimes the Guru is going to say, it's this and it's not that. But he's training you so that you will understand it's this and not that. For example, Prabhupada said you should be a fool at the feet of your Guru. You should feel like a fool at the feet of your Guru. So okay, so I guess I don't have to think. That's not what he meant. He meant feeling like a fool means I should not approach your Guru and think I know more than he knows. I'm a fool. Guru Maharaj, enlighten me. And then Prabhupada said, but you should not act like a fool. So there's a difference. Thinking like a fool means humility. Acting like a fool is just stupidity. So the idea is, if I have a Guru and I hear from him, then I would not act like a fool, because now I have knowledge. So he's not going to tell me every little thing to do, but he's going to give me knowledge by which I will now understand all the little things to do. That's the idea. Does that make sense?
Yes, I have to think more about it. But
Good. Thinking is good for you, yeah. It's like you go to medical school and you learn so many things, but you do interning, but eventually you're going to have to do everything on your own, right? Based on what you learned. Yes.
Hi Krishna.
Haribol.
I'm sorry that I came a little late. I heard Mataji speaking about realization. I think for us Matajis, if we are new, sometimes we tend to think, oh, we have to renunciate because the life is a misery anyway. But mostly after some time we realize that we are not fulfilled if we don't have family and kids.
Yes, yes.
And if we don't have the proper protection,
Yes.
and as you can see, also many mothers stay alone and don't have the protection, and they are pushed to that situation to live a renunciate life. But if we have already kids, we naturally come to the position that, at least for me, it was the experience when I came here 2-3 months ago, that naturally I came to the position that all the Prabhus, Brahmacharis, they are like my kids. So we have a big family.
That's nice. Yeah, it's true. You learn a lot by having children. And it's true what you're saying. For women, generally, that's needed. They're constituted that way. Nothing wrong with it, it's just the way they're made. Then the question comes up, is it better to be single and alone and lonely, or married and alone and lonely? Because sometimes that happens. Yeah. Better single, alone and lonely than married, alone and lonely. But better married in a good relationship. Anyway, it's Kali Yuga. The good thing about Kali Yuga is we don't live that long. Could you imagine if we lived 1,000 years of this? Oh my God. I don't think anybody would last. You know, people say, I want to live a long time. I go, whoa, you like your job? No. Well, you want to work at your job another 100 years? Like, yes.
Could you pass the microphone?
Can you give the mic to your son?
So, if I might, I would like to pick up a little bit on this pot washing seva, pot washing topic.
Okay.
Not to exaggerate it, but sometimes it gets really quite late, and yes, brahmachari, you more or less a yes man. You should say yes to the service and do it dutifully.
Right.
And so, how can one differentiate between maybe laziness or lack of service attitude and self-care?
Yeah. The question is interesting because the best answer to the question is that the person who's giving you the seva should be interested in your care so that he wouldn't give you seva late at night and have you get up early in the morning because it's going to burn you out. So if you say, well, I have to do it, okay, you have to do it, that's true. But the leader shouldn't make you have to do it. That would be a better solution. Of course, you could tell the leader and say, this is not healthy for me. And can we make an arrangement so we get the pots done earlier or tomorrow morning after whatever or something. So you can talk to your leader and express, your needs. I just saw this little clip of Steve Jobs. He said when he was 12 years old, he called up, remember the computers, Hewlett-Packard? Did you ever have those like 20 years ago, Hewlett-Packard? He called up Mr. Hewlett and he said, I want to build something. I didn't know what he wanted to build, but he figured that they would have spare parts just from producing computers. He called up and he answered the phone, Mr. Hewlett, and he said, can I have these spare parts? And he said, sure. And he gave it to him. And Steve Jobs said, you never know what you'll get if you just ask. And most people don't ask. So, you can ask the leader, This is my situation, can we do with something different? Yes.
this mentality of no pain, no gain.
In relation to what? Japa?
Service. Yeah.
Well, we know what Krishna says about it in the Bhagavad Gita. He says bhakti is joyful. But of course, austerity is healthy. And do you know that story? Prabhupada was going on a morning walk. It must have been probably 1974 in Vrindavan. So they're building the temple. And one devotee was late. And he just ran to catch the walk, which was up the road, and he didn't get his shoes. And Prabhupada said, "Where are your shoes?" And he said, "I didn't have time to get them." And Prabhupada said, "Krishna consciousness is already austere enough. You don't have to make it more austere." So, the goal is not how much austerity can you perform every day. And we definitely have to say that if we're not experiencing happiness in Krishna consciousness, if it's all pain, it's not going to last. It's not possible. And austerity really needs to be done because you value the austerity and you see the benefit of it and you actually want to do it. So even though it's austere, it's like there's a certain kind of pleasure, like that cold shower, it's like, but it's like, I feel great. I just did it. There's a self-development guru in America, and he said, every day I take a cold shower, and they asked him why. He said, because I want to train myself to do something that's difficult. Because I don't like the cold shower, but I just force myself to do it. So I've trained myself every day to do something that's difficult. So he likes doing it for that reason. So yeah, it's good. So it helps him. But if we tell everyone, it's 0 degrees out, take a cold shower, run that cold water on your head, it might not work for everybody. I used to do that. Every winter I was sick. Until I realized that actually it's cool. You should cool water, not ice cold water. And because I wasn't sleeping enough. That two combination, the ice cold shower and the lack of sleep, I was like always sick. Sick, get better, sick, get better, sick, get better. And then after 20 years of being a devotee, I thought, it must be the cold shower and lack of sleep. Like, duh. And then I slept a little more and didn't take the cold showers, and I stopped getting sick. So, are we going to start kirtan or something? Are we going to do Damodar Astaka during the kirtan or no? After. So this.
After Nrsimha Pranam, we'll go to Rastaka.
So we just do Nrsimha, just the normal Nrsimha pranams. Okay. Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai. Bhakti Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
His Grace Mahatma Prabhu ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
You would actually eat from?
Of course. Yes.